Welcome back to the By Sword and Musket channel. As we are very close to and just past the 80th anniversary of D-Day, I thought it might be a worthwhile mention to have a little chat about these two weapons, which have been left in my care by an old gentleman who feels the responsibility a little bit too heavily due to our draconian laws on deactivated weapons. So these two are deactivated because they're handguns. They're both genuine pieces. One is the German P38 by Walther. The other one was Smith & Wesson revolver. And as the plaque says, they met in the early hours of D-Day and the German pistol came home. So that gives us a hint as to what has happened. And it's also quite rare to have a first-hand story to relate concerning collecting, and it certainly gives a very good reason for retaining these pieces. To me, as a gun enthusiast, it's a crime that they've had to be deactivated, but that's our government for you, overreacting and denying our history. But I'll explain more with a closer inspection. So here we are. I've taken the pistols out of the case so you can have a closer look at them. How do these two service weapons and a twig relate to each other on the morning of June the 6th, 1944? Well, now I was told this by an old gentleman who I've met. I've been in his house and I've seen royal warrants on the wall for work he did later. But in his early days, and when he was doing his bit to get rid of the Nazi threat in Europe, he was issued with this revolver. It's in 38 special. It's a standard Smith & Wesson, checkered grips, hand ejector, swing out cylinder, and it's chambered in 38 special. It's in nice condition, tiny bit of high edge wear, but there's colour on the hammer and the trigger. Very reliable revolver, blued finish, all the standard S&W features. Now, our operative was in fact parachuted into France in the very dark hours of the 6th of June, and his job was to make his way to the beachhead and to shine signal lights back out to sea to guide the forces in to the various beaches. And I haven't been able to research exactly how they did it, but I imagine they had green and red lights or white lights giving off signals to guide the landing craft in to the correct beaches. A very dangerous job, made all the more dangerous by a population of angry Germans who would be doing their best to thwart your efforts. So our man, the story goes, our man floated down into the French countryside just behind the beachheads. But on the way down, his kit and himself slid down a French farmhouse roof and into a farmyard where he landed in a large crumpled heap. he immediately gathered up his parachute, scooped up his kit and kit bag, and started to try to make himself scarce and hide quickly as possible in case he had alerted anybody to his presence. In fact, what happened was a light in the farmhouse came on, and in a moment or two, a door was opened, and at the door was a German soldier. Now, we don't know if he was an officer or an NCO, but he was armed with this Walther P38 semi-automatic pistol, chambered in 9mm. Very reliable, up close, not very accurate killing pistol issued to, killing machine issued to an awful lot of Germans. This soldier was pulling on his breeches and his braces over his white shirt and calling out into the courtyard. Our man was scurrying backwards in the dark, and at the edge of the farmyard hit some brush and rough trees and ended up tumbling down a ditch into a small stream. Our German soldier came over, alerted to the sounds of the parachutist trying to evade him, and came over to the rough ground himself in the dark without a torch or light. And the gentleman told me that the German actually fell down the slope as well and ended up in the ditch. And in the dark, they both scrabbled for their weapons and brought them up to aim. And for some reason, our man in the ditch with his revolver got his shot off first at close quarters and apparently killed the German on the spot. He then scooted his way over to the body, which was only a couple of yards away, took the pistol out of the German's hands just to make sure he wasn't a threat anymore, checked he was dead, and made his escape, having stuffed the P38 into his blouse parachute jacket. He then made his way to the beach and found his coordinates, followed his coordinates, got into position, sat down in the rough, having evaded other Germans and patrols, etc., and waited there for the arrival of the invasion fleet. He then carried out his job and shone his beacon out to the sea, and the rest is history. But later that day, when he had a quiet moment and all the, I don't know if it was before the fleet landed or whether it was after, but I suspect it was before, while he gathered his breath and maybe had a bit of hot cocoa or something that he might have brought with him. He took the pistol out to examine what he had in front of him. And to his utter astonishment, he found a twig stuck somehow between the hammer and the back workings of the firing block. He was very old, but he said it was stuck behind the hammer. I wondered if it might have got into the breech area, whether the German had got a shot off, but apparently said twig saved our man's life. And the standard, rather rugged revolver came through in the end, as opposed to the slightly more advanced sliding action pistol. That's a true story related by said gentleman. Looking at the warrants on his wall for the stuff he'd done later in his life, I don't see any reason to doubt it, and I think it would be, in fact, rude to do so. So there we go. A darn good reason for collecting and holding handguns. I'm not quite sure why today's government think that their freedom wasn't won by actions like this, and that these are just dirty secrets that we must trash, but we have to hold them deactivated at the moment. And the gentleman wanted to keep them, so he's coming, or has come to the end of his life now. He's done his bit. Both of them hopefully have met up in Valhalla and laughed about it afterwards. Let's hope. So thanks for joining me at By Sword and Musket, and come back again, please. Click like or subscribe. If you have any comments or points of interest you'd like to share with me, I'm always open to listening to what people have to say. Once again, thanks again. Tune in again to By Sword and Musket, and I'll bring you more interesting stories, gun related.